Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is MadOMatic at your service, and for today, I figure why not we try something different. This could be similar to a regular top 10 Watch Mojo video, but this is completely different because first of all, this is just my video, and second of all, I am not intending to copy anyone's work because that'd be illegal. I'm only going to use a few images per episode, and perhaps I could explain what is it about. So this is my top 10 greatest episodes from great shows. The main reason why I call them great is because every time I watch them, I feel a bit inspired and why I like him a lot. And besides, it still inspires me to this very day, and that's why I like to call him the best. But enough said, let's get started. So number 10 we start off is a portrait of the artist as a young clown from King of the Hill. So it is about Hank's son Bobby who is wanting to be a clown. He attends a college even though he's like in middle school, but it just so happens that the teacher over there is perhaps a communist, or maybe someone who's mean. However, since Bobby tries to understand more about clowns, he even learns how clowns were back in the day, like a few centuries ago. And since this teacher explains about what comedy is, he mentions about the ha, guffaw, ah, and haha formula. But since it's mostly confusing to almost everyone, people wouldn't understand about that exactly. So then he watches a video about the teacher who dresses as a clown and speaks in gibberish, only 3 words. Besides, once he learns about how clowns were in the Commedia dell'arte thing during 16th century Italy, he dresses up as one, but kids couldn't understand it. However, things get better when he uses a whoopee cushion, because fart noises always works well with younger audiences. However, the teacher doesn't like it because cheap humor like farting is just out of the ordinary. But it's not entirely true. So since this episode has marks as number 10 because we get to learn about the history of clowns, we also get to learn that communism is wrong, and of course, we understand how things get a bit hazy. On to number 2 is Prom-ise from Tiny Toons. Now, I never went to any proms whatsoever when I was in high school, so this may be quite intriguing in my opinion. But enough said. So Buster and Babs go to this prom at this junior middle school or junior high, and the main reason why I like it is there are some each couples that are trying something nice, and there are a few ridiculous things that they like to do. And besides, Elmira is in love with this. I can't remember his name, but he is in Brazil, and the rabbits find her, and then he decides to like dump her. But then he finds someone else's girlfriend, tries to take her, but she reverses. Okay, not really reverses. She tells the exact same thing to the guy about what he said to Elmira. So he decides to give her another chance. Decides to explain that she's another invention, and then the party continues with anything laughable. This episode it marks as number 9 because it brings up the hilarity at Sue and also how dating can be interesting. Under number 8 is the strike from Seinfeld. Now, my parents loved Seinfeld when they were my age because of the funny characters and the interesting laughs that they have. It could be pretty interesting, but this episode, one of the main characters, Frank Costanza, creates a holiday that really doesn't make any sense, that never existed until the 1990s, or the late 90s. And he decides to create something similar to Christmas, but instead of a Christmas tree, it's a pole. No decorations whatsoever, and he just decides to make it very unusual and with a lot of goofy gimmicks and goofy shenanigans. But besides that, after George fights the rest of the gang, including his boss and a few of Kramer's acquaintances, the dinner goes on. But while Frank says now it's up to the feats of strength, but things get wild. By the time Kramer leaves, no one's going to do the feats of strength, while George can, at least. And so they decided to have an interesting rumble. And Frank said this is the best Festivus ever. A Festivus for the rest of us. You know, in my opinion, if I wanted to make it the best Festivus ever, I would maybe take it place during a high school gymnasium or high school cafeteria with some great music and a lot of pranks around and some nice food and a lot of interesting things out there. Up to number 7 is a new start from Sonic X. Since Sonic has been away for a few years, Amy really hopes that he can come back. But while Sonic returns, everyone is amazed. And once as Super Sonic takes down Eggman, things get quite lovely. Since Amy watches Sonic arrive at Amy's home, she rushes there, she gets a bit mad, but then she becomes emotional. And since Sonic begins to understand more about it, she gets more happy. Even though she isn't smiling, she's crying. So once Sonic gives her a rose, Amy decides to rejoice Sonic beautifully. This episode is in this list due to its beautiful ending. On to number 6, it's Date with Destiny from Teen Titans. I'm not talking about the Teen Titans that are about the ridiculous nonsense. I'm talking about the Titans that were back in the day, during the 2000s. So it was around Valentine's Day, and there's this blonde lady named Kitten, and she was recently dumped. She got dumped by a guy with a spider for a head, and since she has nowhere else to go, she decides to date Robin, and every time, and most of the time, whenever he mention Robin, he mentions a laughable that's really annoying and really ridiculous. But besides that, even though Killer Moth is on the loose, I prefer to see more of Kitten because of her shenanigans and her nonsense and wanting to be in love with Robin so bad, things get out of hand. But wait, once the guy with the spider for a head arrives, he decides to get back with Kitten, and they both got back together, so that's nice. But wait, they are villains, so they must be stopped. So, not only is this episode intriguing, but also very enjoyable. This episode is listed in this because of a few intriguing characters and an intriguing villainous couple. Up to number 5 is George Drives the Batmobile from George Lopez. I mean, we all wish we could drive a Batmobile, don't we? Sure, but not quite. The best part of this episode is when George takes his mom and her friends out for dinner at Jack in the Box. They order so many burgers, so many French fries, and a few beverages. But things do get better. The clerk may be Mexican, and his voice is quite laughable. Whenever you see this episode and whenever you hear that interesting voice, you definitely won't regret it, in my opinion. But besides that, after they left Jack in the Box, things get wild, and as Gina farts, and some other guy sees George asking out for a race, he decides to trick George and let the police know, getting him arrested. This episode is in this list because of a great part where a car filled with ridiculous people partying over fast food and driving around. Number 4 is The King is Dead from Family Guy. We all love a good play. For those who like plays, think the best part is musicals. To me, I personally don't like musicals because they don't get to me. But besides that, whenever you want to write your own story, you want to make it your way. You want to make it something that you wish to have. But since Lois keeps struggling, or something, Peter decides to take over and decides to make it his way. Once he writes out The King and I, things get intriguing. As Brian becomes the king and Peter breaks in, dressed up as a robot, they don't exactly battle, but they just do it with hands. And once Peter ends it, an interesting part happens. But wait, when Lois interrupts and said this was supposed to be mine, Peter decides to go out of silence and farts quietly and then becomes big. This episode is in this list because of the arguments on who should write out stories first. On to number 3 is Miss Spirit Fingers from Totally Spies. Now, this episode, I like it a lot because one of the spies is interested in joining one of the interesting villains that I like, Jazz Hands. But since she tries to look exactly like Jazz Hands, they decides to, well, go on a date, maybe fall in love with each other, make themselves as a couple. You know, as a kid, when I first watched it, I really liked it because I thought Sam was going to be a villain. I thought that they both were decided to go into date with each other, and I just felt like I want to work with them, even though they're villains. But anyway, once the girls try to know about this mime-esque thing, it gets really intriguing. So once they find out that Sam was actually trying to become an actual spy, spying on a villain's antique, things get, well, intriguing. That they're still friends. You know, this episode is on this list because of an interesting villain who finally starts dating a fan, but they both look alike, and they would be a great villainous couple, in my opinion. On to number 2 is Breakout from The Amazing Spies. Now, it's not about dating. It's about makeup people, and it's about turning the world into a circus. Now, the villain is known as the Juggler, and he hires a few gangs who are Italian. So, once the spies head to Italy, the four depart. The 2 go to a shoe store, and the other 2 go out in the streets. So let's start in the shoe store first. So they ask the 2 workers about if they recognized a footprint, but they didn't understand English. They only understood Italian. And so, besides, the other 2 find a few other performers, and of course, you guessed it, the shoe workers and the street workers were actually part of the Juggler's regime. So this episode is in this list because of another interesting villain, the interesting thugs, the great makeup, and of course, a villain wanting to turn the whole world to an evil circus. I believe that is most likely my kind of villain. That is more like it. So I really wish that he would come back for a few more episodes, but unfortunately we couldn't, which is a shame, in my opinion. And finally, number 1 is Jack and the Rave from Samurai Jack. You know, this is my personal favorite episode of my personal favorite show. Yeah, it's because these ravers are neon and and their evil red eyes, and even the music. It's so swift, wonderful ambience, and even great. And since they are called evil music, whoever gets really close to these sounds will be hypnotized. And it's not Aku who is controlling them, but perhaps Aku's evil DJ, a hired DJ to hypnotize these teenagers, cause massive destruction, and realize that maybe kids and teens need to win over arguments too. But besides that, while Jack heads in, he disguises himself as a raver. After he infiltrates, and of course, once the ravers found out that raver was Jack the whole time, they tried to take him out. But fortunately, Jack realized that the only way to break them free is stopping the music. Once he take down DJ Stibletor, the teenagers stopped being hypnotized. They go back to their families. So, yeah, this episode is number one because of the interesting, awesome beats of Aku's evil music, the interesting attires and disguises and styles the Ravers wore, and again, another fascinating villain. So that's pretty much about it. If you all enjoyed this video and if you're excited for more videos, then please don't forget to subscribe. I will see you in a future video. This is MadOMatic, signing off.
How it's supposed to feel.